we have to bring in. We have to bring in what I would just say, one of the most generous men in e-commerce. And I would say that quite forthrightly. He is an Okie from not too far from Muskogee. He is one of the Sooners' favorite sons, and we need to welcome inside of the show Mike Beckham, CEO of Simple Modern. Mike, get inside of here. Let's go. Get inside this show, Mike.
Yes. What's up? How are we doing, guys?
What an intro. Boy. Yeah.
What an intro.
You know,
all right.
We got to do it big for you, Mike.
Come on.
I mean, you know, it's not every day we get the next owner of the Oklahoma City Thunder coming inside the show. I mean,
well, hey, listen, one can dream. One can dream. I have had conversations to try and understand what the price would be.
Yeah.
And let's say I'm going to have to sell a lot more water bottles to do that. NBA franchises are quite expensive these days.
Well, you know, it could be that maybe you get a deal on a new NFL franchise that should be coming to Oklahoma City. I mean, it's just, it's worth exploring. But I would say, Mike, you know, for sure you're selling the cups, but I mean, from what I understand now, you're selling what goes inside those cups too. Man, I would love it if you would just give us, for those who don't know, you give us a little origin story on Mike Beckham and brother, what you're doing, not only with Simple Modern now, but what's happening with Trevi and what's going on inside of that cup. Can you give us just a little update on what's going on?
All right, here we go. So I have super weird origin story. I graduated from college in 2003. Even though I was a business major, I went into full-time ministry. I did that for 10 years. And near the end of that, I helped my brother start a company in 2009. So this is like, guys, this is back when there's no Shopify really at that point. Like if you have servers, like you're paying for a cage in Atlanta to keep your servers in. That's the stage. You know, if you have a website, you've built it. We started a company, and that company got very big, very fast. It almost $1 billion in revenue. And
did it really, Mike?
And that kind of pulled me into the business world. With my brother, started several other businesses. The most significant, like little Easter egg of that is we started an Amazon business that did things like pillows and comforters and stuff like that. At one point, my brother himself designed this pillow that we ended up calling the Beckham Hotel Collection pillow. And that pillow, I think, is like maybe the best-selling pillow in the world. It's crazy. There are no Beckham hotels. That is just like a creation of ours. But anyway, so did that with my brother for a while. 2015 was like, I think I want to start a company of my own, and had some ideas about just how to do it really differently. You know, focus on generosity, high focus on culture. And so a couple of guys that I had been friends with for a long time, we started Simple Modern. We knew the type of company we wanted to build before we knew what we wanted to sell. Eventually found water bottles, knew immediately, hey, this is product market fit, and have grown that business. It started as an adult drinkware business. Now we do a lot of kids drinkware as well. And we do all kinds of other things within that business. And then about a year and a half ago, I started realizing I've got a lot of talent internally where the company's spitting off cash. And we kind of have a system and a playbook of like what we do really well, which I think, you know, everybody who watches this show, every entrepreneur, you can't do everything and you can't do everything well. But like, if you can kind of know, hey, this is my thing and this is what I do really well. And I have a sense of that. My team has a sense of that. And so we're like, let's do that same playbook, but let's do it with other stuff. And so electrolytes was our second category. It's called Trevi. You should check it out. It's delicious. It's the best tasting electrolytes out there, bar none. And then in the last year, we've launched a third and a fifth coming this summer, and a fifth is coming this fall, like product line. So, which I'm not really ready to talk about what those are, but it's super fun. I love entrepreneurship. It's ironic. I'm following Sean. He's my boy. You know, we spent a lot of hours talking about this stuff on operators and chats. So anyway, that's kind of my story.
Mike's getting into peptides. I can already tell. That's
I don't think so.
All natural for right now, until I figure out if they won't give me cancer, and then I'll be injecting them like everybody else.
Fair enough. I didn't know that there was a third already out, Mike. Yeah. I thought it was just Trevi. I thought it was just Trevi, and then
we move in silence right now. Like, it's actually like, It's interesting because we were talking about like, hey, how public are we about other brands that we launch and what we're doing and stuff? And I think that I've generally like to be a transparent person. Like, hey, here's all the stuff I'm doing, whatever. Here's what I'm learning. I was probably transparent, like bordering on idiocy with Trevi, because it's like if this thing blew up, I'm going to look really stupid. But the new stuff, what I've really come to understand is like the risk outweighs the reward, because people know that Simple Modern's successful, and you're just going to get people trying to sue you, people trying to make your life difficult. And so I think we'll probably be a little bit more private with the additional ventures that we launch, but it's super fun because I'm getting to be more of an advisor to a lot of different things now, which I love, because no 2 days look the same. And then obviously I care about trying to help other people be successful. That's why I do the pod and a lot of coaching that I do. So I've got a pretty diversified portfolio of things that I put time towards. But I tweeted this out yesterday, but I really think the best thing that entrepreneurship can give you is high agency, that you get to choose who you work with, you get to choose what you work on. And so like the theme that I want to be true for the rest of my career, I don't really care the titles I have. I don't really care how much money I make. Like, I'm just going to give almost all of it away. But like, I want to work on interesting puzzles with people I really enjoy. That's it. And there's a lot of interesting puzzles out there. And I love the fact that like in the things I work on, I get to do it with people that I enjoy being around. And it's like, man, doesn't get any better than that. Right.
Yeah. That's good. One of those puzzles that you constantly are tweeting about is OpenClaw and AI. You are surprisingly very involved with OpenClaw and all the experiments and how much time you've already committed to this. Could you talk us through how you're trying to basically apply these to the businesses moving forward and how you see this stuff evolving?
So I want to start with a principle. I see this mistake with entrepreneurs and people in business all the time. You know how you get better at something? It's not by hiring a consultant. It's by doing it. It's by like actually playing with the thing. And you can never like outsource that. Like there's no substitute for like personal experimentation and personal learning. And so interestingly, I've been very much like Kurzweil wrote The Singularity is Near like 20 something years ago. And I was introducing people to that book. So I've been paying attention to this stuff for a long time. But interestingly, as AI has really taken off in the last year, there was a point where I was like, well, I just don't know what the use cases are for me. And maybe at the point in my career where I'm at, like it just doesn't have that much to offer me. And then you know what? I was like, you know what? That's a fixed mindset. That's not a growth mindset. This is a skill issue. I need to figure it out. And that drove me, like it was that day I'm like, I'm downloading. It was called Clawbot or Claudebot or something, whatever at the time, but I'm downloading it and I'm just going to figure it out. And the more that I have used the tools and play with the tools, I think two things are really important about it. One is you start to understand the trajectory that these things are on. Like I can tell you from February to April, like from February to May, like it is drastic. It is shocking, like how much better they're getting. And there's really no way to get a feel for that unless you're actually playing with them and seeing what they can do and seeing how they respond. And like my kind of big takeaway of all this is that to be effective in the AI age, you're going to have to reshape your brain and reshape how you think. And that is very hard to do. We're very resistant to that as humans. And so the hard work, the technology is going to get better and better. So you might say, well, why don't I should just wait. I should just wait 6 months from now, a year from now, it'll be better. I'll do it then. And the problem with that line of thinking I've come to realize is that you can't reshape your brain in, a short period of time. Being able to like fundamentally alter thought processes. So I'll give a really simple example of this. Or I'll use an analogy first. There's quite a few animals that if you put them in a cage and then the fence or whatever is electrified, or maybe it's not electrified, it's just very solid. What that animal will do is it'll go around and it'll kind of test that fence in a bunch of areas. And if it becomes convinced that there's no way out, it'll never test the fence again for the rest of its life because it's decided in its mind, this is a constraint and it's just a immutable law of the universe. And we are the exact same way. The way that even really intelligent people work is they say, what's my goal? What are my constraints? And now I'm going to goal seek to that goal around the constraints. Well, what about a world where the constraints are constantly shifting or being removed? That is actually something we're not very accustomed to thinking about.
Yeah.
So instead, what you have to really start to do is from first principles say, if I could build the ideal business, how would it look and how would it work? And what would be the systems and what would I know? And then you look at the technology and say, what of this can I do today? What of this can I not do yet? And so that's a lot of what I'm doing. And even yesterday, like I've done a lot of building kind of profitability models in my career. I'm kind of an analyst by nature. So I've happened to attack it less from like the advertising angle and more of like the data angle.
Yeah.
And the more that I do it, the more I'm starting to get a vision for how differently things will work in our organization and probably in organizations in general, because of what's now possible. It's not even just like, hey, I can automate this thing. It's more like there are levels of granularity and detail and abilities that we just can't do today because of constraints. It's like a really simple example of this. We do a lot of abstraction. So if I say, hey, I want to know how this group of 10,000 people is going to behave, you can say, well, we should look at other groups of 10,000 people that are kind of like them, or we should maybe do a random sampling of this group of 10,000 people, or maybe we'll look at the entire behavior of this group of 10,000 people and just kind of imagine that'll keep going. But the reason we think that way is because you can't say like, I'm going to look at every individual person in that group of 10,000 and kind of project out what they're likely to do. But that's just a constraint that's like, it's kind of a compute resource, like bandwidth constraint.
Yeah.
And the future we're going to is just being able to understand our businesses at so much of a deeper level. Like within Simple Modern, we have all of these ideas that we have about relationships, things that we know are true, but we don't really understand how they work. We just kind of generally, intuitively understand the relationships. And you're going to start to be able to like be a lot more dialed into that. That's like, I really understand this causes this causes this. And even if the world is very complex where, 100 different things are influencing our sales number for a day, or 1,000 or 10,000, that we're going to be able to start to like peel those apart and just have way more insight, which hopefully will lead to running better businesses.
Yeah. I mean, Chris, how can you not be bullish on e-commerce after that?
Well, I am, and I'm, as you've been talking, Mike, it makes me really like reconsider like this whole point that you're making. I'm getting it as you talk. There are limitations that we have self-imposed or from prior experiences that we just throw up and inside of our mind, and will not consider like, is that actually constraint anymore with the tools that I have available? Or how could I get there if I wanted to? What could I leverage to not just like get a general guess about these 10,000 people and how they're going to behave, but actually what data points can I leverage to an infinitesimal amount of granularity to actually show, no, this is how they're going to behave. And it seems like a lot of the work here is to retrain the way that we think so as to like get rid of those blockages that we just naturally throw up inside of our mind. Am I on the right vein here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what's really exciting is it's true of every area of your life. Like the ability to track out what's going on with my health is obviously going to be orders of magnitude better than at any point in human history, right? The medicine that's coming, the tracking that's coming, the ability to understand, like it's going to be all of a sudden I get to think totally differently about my health and how do I take agency and take ownership of it going forward. I have kids, they're 11 and 14. I can think very differently about parenting and about their education and about helping them to grow into the best version of themselves because of what AI makes possible. So I guess I would say it this way. In a little bit, AI is just like a mirror because its usefulness and your perspective on it is directly a result of your ability to conceptually understand or dream up ways that you might use it. And so there's a lot of people that are like, hey, it's just a stupid chat bot. It's just Google, with a little bit of extra bells and whistles. And it's like, yeah, if you use it like that, that's all it is. But when you start to think about it more as this incredibly powerful, multifaceted tool and you start to think creatively about, like, what could I do? That's when there's just like some really fun, like, this is a really small example, but it's like, it's a cool example. We did a new brand video, and we were able to, with AI, come up with like a whole bunch of different potential brand kind of songs, brand jingles, and it's like, well, what would that have cost before? And it's like, oh, maybe you get a creative agency and they give you one for $100,000. But now it's like, hey, we can generate 50 options that we like, and we can kind of decide which one do we want to use. And we can split test that. Like, there's just 1,000 things like that in our business, but there's things like that. Like, one of my favorite things I've seen is there's a mom on Twitter who is homeschooling like 4 or 5 kids, and she just posts about how she's using OpenClaw to homeschool her kids. And it's like, it's great.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. Like a really simple example that I haven't built yet, but like an example of this is like, I kind of tell OpenClaw, or I can give OpenClaw, hey, here's my ordering history from Walmart. Here are the types of things I buy. And then, hey, I'm going to, go in and take pictures of my shelves and send it to you and just generate what I need and go order it. Like, these are the kind of things that are going to be more and more common, where there's going to be all of these fun use cases that just make our life a little bit better and a little bit easier. Like, this morning, I had a great one. I have a reverse osmosis water filter under my counter, and this is a newer house. Not many things have been problematic, but this thing sucks. This thing has really been a thorn in my side. And so I'm like, I need to quit messing with this thing, and I need to get a really good one. But I'm like, I'm not a plumber. I don't know anything about reverse osmosis. I'm able to snap a bunch of pictures, and I work with one of the models to say, okay, explain exactly what's going on under here. What do you think is the best kind of reverse osmosis filter for my setup? And can you make some recommendations? And it's just like, okay. He's like, it explained, hey, here are the thoughts. Here's what's going on. Here'd be the easiest one when it comes to these aspects and installation. And I'm like, boom, do it. I'm going to install my own reverse osmosis. But it kind of goes back to this idea that, like, if you're high agency, if you're the type, it's kind of like that, you can just do things, right? Like, you can just do, like, and so those type of people are now going to be even more powerful, because for a lot of high agency people, there were still these barriers. Like, I'm a really high agency person, but like, I'm not a software developer. Like, I don't have skills in that area. So there's just this very real fence that I can't get past, but now I can. Right. And so anyway, this is why it's so exciting. And I think it's going to be transformative in a bunch of ways we can expect, and in a bunch of ways we would have never guessed.
Okay, Mike, in this vein, and because you have, how many employees at Simple Modern?
About 100.
Okay. Wow. You got 100 employees at Simple Modern. You guys are, increasingly launching more brands, et cetera. You are obviously steeped in the tools themselves, OpenClaw, and you're considering, how people with high agency inside my organization will use this, but also broadly, I'd love your thoughts on, like, what happens to the white collar worker inside of America. I think as we started this year, I was very doomer. I was very, hey, everybody, wake up. Okay. You want to still have a job in a year, in 18 months, like, get into the tools now, et cetera. But as this year has gone by, and, there's like more software engineer jobs than there were. And as this year has gone by, I'm a little more bullish than I have been, but I'd love your thoughts on what happens to the white collar worker in America.
So I think that my generalized view is this will be net extremely positive. I think it's obviously going to be really disruptive. So I think in the micro, like the next 2 to 5 years, I think we're going to feel real disruption. Like, it's kind of like the classic example, like, hey, when you went from horses to automobiles, there were a bunch of people that made buggy whips, or that, whatever, drove carriages, and they felt that. That happens anytime there's some kind of like technological or, revolution in a society. I'm sure it was that way when, the personal computer came out. This is probably just going to be more broad-based. So it's going to be very disruptive. And there's going to be some jobs that happen today that just don't really exist in the form that they exist today. However, I think we need to not confuse tasks with jobs. So you've probably read a lot about Jevons paradox, and the basic idea is, as something becomes basically more powerful and cheaper, that demand for that thing just explodes. And so, like, we'll use radiology for an example. in the last year, we've gotten to the point where the AI can read a radiology scan even better than a radiologist. Yeah. And so people are like, well, what does this mean? What does this mean for the future of radiologists? And we can observe what's happening. And what's happening is that the number of job openings for radiologists is going up, and they're earning all-time high rates. And so it's like, okay, so why is that? And the answer is actually pretty intuitive once you think about it. The reason why that's happening is because as radiology scans become cheaper and more effective, right? More accurate, what is demand for radiology scans going to do? It's going to go through the roof, right? Wow. And as it goes through the roof, who is the person that's on the other side of scheduling those and administering those safely, and also having a human that's verifying what the AI is telling you, because you do want somebody verifying it. So there will be a lot of tasks that get commoditized. And there will be some jobs that are exclusively task-based that get commoditized away. But what you'll find is that really, I think the number of jobs is likely to just grow. And the amount, you're going to have so many verticals, I think, where they're going to say, we need way more people than we've got, because the technology now makes it possible. We're just not equipped with enough humans to fill all of the use cases that are coming. So it can simultaneously be true, super disruptive in the short term, and there are going to be a lot of people that feel like it moved their cheese. But in the long run, I think, or not even the long run, the intermediate run, the next 5 to 7 years, you're going to see an explosion of new fields. And then you're going to see a bunch of existing fields that just need way more people because the demand for their service has skyrocketed. And this is also, like, generally, if you think about it, this is what's true about economies. Economies are like this big circle where it starts with people want stuff. And so they're, maybe it's food, maybe it's goods, whatever. And so they're motivated to work, and their work, that productivity produces goods and services, which they get money and they get goods and services. And so it's this big loop, right? Well, not every economy grows at the same rate. Why is that? And that's because some loops are way more efficient. And sometimes you can get loops where, GDP grows 5%, 10%, 15%. We've seen this actually in countries. So I think it's very plausible that you start to get a growth rate that's possible because of AI, that actually where the real bottleneck is people. And I would just, if I was going to make another prediction, the prediction would be the second leg of this, that really where things get really weird, but also like where what's possible is just beyond what we could probably imagine over the next 10 or 20 years, is robotics.
Yeah.
Because then it's just like, well, again, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's just like not doable today. But but a robot could do it, and there's a whole bunch of, and like that's a whole like class of like labor and productivity so it's going to get super weird. But if you had bet against humanity and had bet against technological progress at any point, you would have been wrong. And if you look backwards at the labor market, every time there's been a disruption, it's been net positive for the people being disrupted. Like, we were all farmers. Like, like if you look at America, for example, go back to the 1880s, 1890s in America. The average person is a farmer. Yeah. Or at least in my part of the country, average person's a farmer, and the average person works 90 to 100 hours a week. Like, so how much better is our life? Yeah. I mean, I'm not a farmer in Oklahoma, but like, how much better is my life than it would have been 130 years ago? Well, it's like quite a bit better. And my guess is that the same is going to be true. And I'll give one final idea here. So knowledge work is basically, I'm looking at information that enables me to make decisions that create value. That's all it is, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of pounding the table on this concept I call RIA, which is, for a knowledge worker to do anything valuable, they have to have a piece of information that fits 3 criteria. First one, has to be relevant, has to kind of pertain to what they do. So I could come across some really interesting information about, whatever, the MBA, but I can't really do anything with it. It has nothing to do with my business selling water bottles. Right. It has to be interesting, And the interesting part basically means it's unexpected in some way, because all the time we look at information, but it's like, well, that number is the exact same as I expected it to be, or the exact same as it was last week. And so do I do anything with it? No, because there's nothing interesting there.
Right.
And then the third one is actionable. That I have to be able to take that and actually do something, or I can't create the value. So if you think that knowledge work is basically it's RIA, that's the secret sauce, what you realize is 99% of our week, we're not looking at information that's RIA, because we have to wade through a whole bunch of crap that doesn't matter. Right.
Yeah.
So here's the real bull case. The real bull case is, what if we spent less and less of our time looking at stuff that truly doesn't matter? Like, or another way of saying it, if you had the perfect ability to separate the signal from the noise, how long would your work week be? Mine might be 5 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think that's the kind of promise of what might be possible, is that you work when you want to work, not because you need to work a certain numbers hours a week, and that we get intensely higher amounts of leverage from every hour that we do work. How quickly do we get there? How messy is it between here and there? I don't know, but I think this is where we're headed.
Hope for the knowledge worker from Mike Beckham.
Mike firing us up on a Friday about the hope for the future. I love it.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Mike, I would love to do a little throwback, a little walk down memory lane. You had a tweet, and I don't even know if you remember this. You had a very long tweet a while ago about basically it was time for Mike to be mowing his own lawn now.
Right.
You usually had a guy, and now we are entering the era of Mike mowing his own lawn. I do want to let you know that inspired me in that moment, and I really buckled down and I locked in that, because I was like, if Mike's mowing his own lawn, I need to lock in and figure my stuff out. Is it still that era for you? And how are you feeling about that, having gone through that?
So I think what I was trying to say more than anything else as a metaphor is that it is easy to think that as I move on in my career, what that entitles me to is not having to do the hard work anymore. Right. That's for other people. And I'm just going to kind of sit up here and manage and, kind of pontificate. And I think that, interestingly, what motivated that tweet was the tariffs. And we did have a it's kind of incredibly ironic. This year's April was awesome. Last year's April was probably the worst April I had in the entire 11 years running Simple Modern. So they couldn't have been more opposite. But the idea was simply that the way that you respond to challenge is by being high agency and by being like, I'm willing to do the work. And so, interestingly, I think tariffs challenged me to really you're 10 years into Simple Modern. It's been really successful. Companies made a bunch of money, but this is not the time for you to be sitting back and watching other people do the work. And I think that was so critical. We just talked about technology and technology disruption. It is just so easy to want to outsource the hard work and outsource the thinking. And I just don't want to be that type of person is really what I determined during that period. And I'm really thankful for it. So, there's nothing against having people mow your yard. I can't do everything, but the idea is, if you start to get to the point where you're like, I'm averse to doing the work, or I want to leave that to others, that's a real red flag. And that probably is a sign that you're starting to degrade in your career. Because if you just think about it at a really high level, my ability to lead other people is highly tied to my understanding of what they're working on and my ability to give helpful insights. The moment that I start saying, I'm not going to do the work, my kind of context window for what any of the people that I'm mentoring or leading or doing starts to degrade to the point where I'm not able to actually be that helpful. I mean, I can offer them general leadership advice, but other than that, I can't really be helpful for them. And it becomes harder and harder for me to actually even spot talent and who's really talented at something. So my advice to everybody listening to this is that you stay hungry. And really, this is what growth mindset is like, I'm not competing against anybody else. I'm competing against me. And every day, am I willing to put in the work to become a better version of myself? Or am I just, saying, hey, I want comfort? And like I posted a quote last week that was like, my aspiration in life is to be defeated by greater and greater challenges. So all of it, I think, kind of ties in with the same mindset. Yep. So yeah, but I love that. I got a ton of feedback on that tweet, and I think it came at a very key time when I was kind of starting to think I'll let other people do the work, and I'll just kind of, you know, be around, but I'll let other people do things, and it helped me to kind of lock in and reengage.
Wow. Mike Beckham, CEO of Simple Modern, and other things coming forth.
We'll find out about
that. We will be watching for, brother. We know you're going to stay locked in, and we hope that you make all of the monies, because we know what you're going to do with them, brother. And we appreciate you making the time and coming on here. And thanks for all that you do in the space. And we look forward to having you back now.
Thanks, guys.